You probably believe that time speeds up as you get older because of simple math. It is the most common explanation we tell ourselves when another year suddenly vanishes. The logic, known as the proportional theory, goes like this. When you are 5 years old, a single year represents a massive 20% of your entire existence on Earth. It is a gigantic fraction of everything you have ever known. But by the time you celebrate your 50th birthday, a single year is just 2% of your life. It feels like a tiny drop in an ever-expanding ocean, because each passing year makes up a smaller and smaller percentage of your total accumulated history. Your brain allegedly perceives it as shorter. It is a deeply comforting theory because it makes the terrifying acceleration of time feel logical, but it is completely wrong. If human perception actually worked like a basic mathematical fraction, the consequences would be incredibly bizarre. If you plot that percentage curve on a graph, you will find that a human being reaches the midpoint of their subjective perception of time by the age of 6. Think about that. If your brain just did simple division, you would have felt like half of your entire life was already over before you even learned how to tie your shoelaces or read a full sentence. No 6-year-old on the planet walks around going through a midlife crisis, feeling like the vast majority of their existence is already in the rearview mirror. Your brain does not do math with time. It does something far more complicated, far more physical, and far more ruthless. It calculates time using data. And right now, without you even realizing it, your brain is actively deleting your life. To understand why entire seasons seem to evaporate into thin air, you have to stop thinking about time as something on a clock and start looking at the physical, biological wiring inside your skull. We have to look at the machinery. In your early childhood, your neural pathways, the biological cables that transmit information, were short, simple, and blazingly fast. Because the physical distances inside a child's brain are smaller and less convoluted, electrical signals flash from one region to another almost instantaneously. Because of this rapid firing rate, a child's brain is essentially an ultra-high-speed camera. It captures dozens of sensory snapshots every single second. It is oversampling reality in absolute high definition. That is why when you were 7 years old, lying in the grass during summer vacation, an afternoon felt like an entire lifetime. Your brain was processing an overwhelming amount of raw data. The exact shade of green on a blade of grass, the subtle shift in the wind, the strange shape of a cloud, the texture of the dirt under your fingernails. More data points packed into every passing moment meant that every passing moment felt incredibly heavy, full, and long. But as you age, a physiological shift happens. Your neural networks become incredibly complex. You learn languages, you develop skills, you build memories, and as a result, your brain grows into a sprawling, tangled, chaotic web of branching connections. Physics dictates a very simple rule: the longer and more convoluted the path, the longer it takes for an electrical signal to travel from point A to point B. Because of this physical resistance and physiological lag, an adult brain literally captures fewer frames of reality per second than a child's brain. Imagine switching from a camera that shoots 240 frames per second down to a camera that only shoots 24. The external clock on the wall has not changed its rhythm. A minute is still 60 seconds, but your internal frame rate has dropped. You are physically sampling less of the physical world. You are completely missing fractions of a second, over and over again, all day long. However, a slower mental processor is only the first part of the trap. It explains why time might feel slightly different in the present moment, but it does not explain the terrifying phenomenon of looking back at the past year and finding a blurry, empty void. The real reason your history is disappearing comes down to a ruthless optimization algorithm engineered by evolution. Recently, neuroscientists studying the brain's internal architecture discovered something entirely unexpected located deep within the hippocampus, the region responsible for memory. They found specialized neurons that they named time cells. These are specific biological mechanisms tasked with keeping track of chronological order, allowing you to sequence your life into a coherent timeline. But here is the monumental catch: time cells do not tick sequentially like the seconds on a digital watch. They are not a metronome. Instead, they fire based on distinct, novel events. They are event-driven. They only stamp biological timestamps onto completely new experiences. When you were a child, absolutely everything was a novel event. The world was alien. The texture of a new carpet in a waiting room, the intensely sour taste of a strange fruit, the terrifying, towering height of a playground slide, the weird shadows cast by a street lamp in a new neighborhood. Every single day delivered a barrage of things your brain had never encountered before. And when a human brain encounters the unknown, it does not coast. It lights up like a power grid. It fires across multiple regions of the cortex, forcing those time cells to stamp thousands upon thousands of chronological markers into your memory. This process requires a staggering amount of energy. At age 5, a human brain consumes roughly 66% of the body's total resting calories. 2/3 of the food a child eats goes directly to fueling a 3-pound organ trying to decode a completely unfamiliar universe. Because your childhood brain burns so much energy encoding these highly detailed, dense memory files, looking back at those years feels like looking at an endless encyclopedia. The summer of your 8th year felt endless because your brain is forced to scroll through a massive, towering mountain of tightly packed data. Now, take a cold, hard look at your current life as an adult. You wake up to the exact same alarm tone. You walk into the exact same kitchen and drink the exact same brand of coffee. You drive the exact same route to work, navigating the exact same traffic lights, to sit in the exact same chair, and stare at the exact same glowing rectangle for 8 hours. Your adult brain is no longer an explorer, it has become an energy-saving machine. Evolution designed the brain to conserve calories whenever possible to ensure survival. When your brain recognizes a highly familiar pattern, it immediately goes into autopilot. It literally stops recording. It refuses to waste precious caloric energy building new neural pathways or stamping new time cells for a commute you have already done 2,000 times. Instead of recording every second of your Tuesday, your brain takes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, aggressively compresses them into a single, low-resolution zip file labeled work week, and completely deletes the original footage. It tosses the rest into the void. When you reach the end of the month and wonder where the time went, the terrifying truth is that the time did not fly by. The time happened at its normal speed. Your brain simply refused to write any of it down. The hard drive is empty. Psychologists have a name for this terrifying glitch in human perception. They call it the holiday paradox, and it is the ultimate psychological trap of adulthood. The paradox reveals that humans have two completely different, often contradictory, ways of experiencing time. How time feels in the present moment, and how time feels in retrospect when we search our memories. Think about being stuck in a devastatingly boring, repetitive meeting, or standing in a long line at the DMV. In the present moment, time drags agonizingly slowly. You look at the clock, wait what feels like 20 minutes, look again, and only 2 minutes have passed. It is torture, but because nothing novel or interesting happened, your brain recorded absolutely zero data. So, a week later, that entire afternoon has completely evaporated from your mind. It felt like an eternity in the moment, but it occupies zero space in your memory. Conversely, think about the last time you traveled to a foreign, chaotic city. Imagine navigating a place where you cannot read the street signs, the language is different, the smells are overwhelming, and the social rules are entirely new. In the present moment, the days fly by in a blur of intense engagement. You are so absorbed in navigating the novelty that you never check your watch. But months later, when you look back, that short 5-day trip will feel like it lasted for a month. Why? Because your hippocampus was violently jolted out of its energy-saving mode. It was forced to create thousands of fresh, dense, high-resolution timestamps. We see extreme, micro versions of this during terrifying events. People who have survived car crash or gone skydiving often report that the event felt like it happened in slow motion. Time did not actually slow down, but the massive dump of adrenaline forced their brains to suddenly start recording reality at maximum resolution. Every single fraction of a second was encoded in vivid detail to help them survive. When they replay that memory later, the sheer volume of data makes the 5-second event feel like it took 5 minutes. This reveals the permanent trade-off built into the human condition. It is a biological rule you cannot escape, and you cannot have both. A life of predictable, comfortable routine is incredibly easy to manage today. It requires very little energy, it keeps your stress levels low, and it is safe. But it comes with a devastating price tag. It guarantees that you will have absolutely no memory of it tomorrow. It guarantees that your decades will blur together into a featureless smear. On the other hand, a life of constant novelty, challenge, and unfamiliarity requires intense caloric and mental energy in the present moment. It is exhausting, it is uncomfortable, but forcing your brain out of autopilot is the only known biological mechanism to stretch out your time on this planet. It is the only way to build a vast, rich timeline of memories. Tomorrow morning, the alarm is going to ring again. You are going to wake up, and you will feel the gravitational pull to follow the exact same script you followed today. To eat the same thing, take the same route, and have the same conversations. Just remember that every single time you choose absolute predictability, you are making a physical change to your brain. You are instructing your mind to stop recording. You are actively choosing to erase another day of your existence. The universe is not accelerating. The clock on the wall has not sped up. You have just stopped giving your mind a reason to hit the record button.